Welcome back to the Real Couchwives podcast, where we overanalyze all things Bravo. We are 10 episodes into Southern Charms season 9, and we finally are getting more information about what really happened between Austen and Taylor. Kind of.
Yeah, after an explosive weekend at the cottage that resulted in Shep and Taylor ending up in bed together, Austen is seemingly turning on Taylor and is finally starting to come clean.
Clean. I have air quotes there. Austen's version of clean. We, of course, are talking about the infamous kiss between Austen and Taylor that really kind of blew up 4 relationships simultaneously. It's a storyline that's been driving this season of Southern Charm. The revelation that we get this episode is that Taylor, in fact, was the instigator of the kiss.
I know, and I think all of a sudden it's feeling like it makes a little bit more sense why Taylor's been the one to get the most amount of heat for this decision and this little thing that has happened between her and Austen.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, don't still want to give Austen his time for making this decision too.
As I feel like someone said, it takes 2 to tango.
Definitely, yeah. I think that was the wise words of Whitney.
So we find this out from both Olivia, who's telling JT, and then also Austen, who kind of just reached his breaking point with Taylor in this episode after she ended up back in bed with Shep after he said really horrible things to her in the last episode about basically enjoying cheating on her, and she threw a drink on him, and moments later, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't actually moments later, but in the version that we're watching, they're then in bed together.
Yeah, a kiss that also sounded like it was instigated by Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's what Shep's trying to say.
Yeah,
I don't know if I buy that.
That's true, because now it's much easier to kind of pin it on her, right?
Yeah, I'm sure Shep was like an equally invested participant. So we're gonna unpack more of kind of like both not Olivia, oh my gosh, I cannot stop saying Olivia. Taylor and Olivia's, they should be swapped. I hate the person who put this meme in my head saying that Olivia and Taylor's names should be the opposite, because now I can't stop.
It's okay. I know what you're saying.
But yeah, we're gonna unpack Taylor and Austen's versions of the kiss, of what transpired, and like point out some of the holes that are in both of their stories. And then also the interesting thing here is that Austen has really been sticking up for Taylor this whole time, and he's finally broken and called her pathetic.
Yeah, exactly. That's just it. Like, now that he really can't understand how she could possibly go back to Shep after all this time. And not that she's fully going back to Shep, but kind of falling back into Shep and like her old relationship with him after all this time, and all the things that Austen has done to kind of crawl her out of that relationship, or like pull her out of that relationship. I can understand why he would be annoyed, because if I was my friend and I'd like put in all that time and effort to be like, this is a bad relationship for you, you need to get out of here, and then she's just like, yep, bad relationship, let's just see how this goes.
Like we've been saying, Taylor's just lost. She's super lost. I really feel like that's actually the biggest theme of this season. It's just like, oh, girl, stop making these decisions
with these boys. There's other boys out there.
There's other boys. Anyways, we're gonna do full recap, so let's go back to the beginning. The scene actually starts off like we're done with the trip. I was actually really surprised. I thought that there was going to be a continuation from the last episode. Like, I kind of thought that we were still going to be in the mountain with Taylor and Shep, but
yeah, it's true. You would think that there would at least have been something between like Taylor and Shep. Like, I know that we kind of saw all the other like people like packing up and being like, okay, I'm ready to get out of here at the end of the last episode. But you're right. I think that it would have made sense if there was like a little bit of continuity between Taylor and Shep and kind of like how they resolved that. But maybe they just didn't, right? Maybe they just both kind of like walked away and were like, yep, I guess that happened.
It just felt like this big bombshell, and then it was like, so anyways, back at Miss Patricia and Whitney's house, they're planning a dinner.
I got this cake from King Charles, Chuck.
Chuck, Whitney's close personal friend. Whitney in an interview called King Charles Chuck, and he's like, I call him Chuck. So we start off with just like a classic kind of like context setting. I do feel like they use Miss Patricia a lot, similar to how they use Lisa in Vanderpump Rules to kind of like move plots along. It starts out with like Whitney going over to Whitney and Patricia's house and basically saying like, oh yeah, Taylor woke up in my bed, like we kissed. That's pretty much all that happened in that scene.
That's basically all that happened in that scene, but it was an enjoyable scene. It's always fun to get to see Patricia again.
And they set up that they're going to be having like a dinner.
The return of the guys' night.
The return of guys' night.
So exciting. amazing.
It's like a fancy like Buckingham Palace
Yeah,
night.
yeah. These are like one of my favorite events that continues to happen in Southern Charm. Like I love that they kind of like bring this back each year, and do
Same.
like a different version of it each time.
But I wish they would do more with the girls. I feel like they only
I
had it with the
know
girls like that one, was it that
year.
one time in season
I
5
feel
when
like it
Catherine was
was.
invited? That was like
Yeah.
a huge deal.
Yeah, I feel like it was. It was just 1 year. But hey, you know, it's good to see it again.
The
It was
girls.
definitely the most chaotic of the boys' nights or guys' nights that they've ever done, though.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe not most chaotic, but like most like awkward, just like ending of like parting of the Red Seas, two people going off in their different directions and
Yeah,
not
spoiler
resolving
alert,
anything.
Shep gets angry and
Yeah,
leaves.
and leaves.
So then we move to Paige and Craig going to dinner together. I always love Paige and Craig scenes. I love seeing
Yeah.
Paige. So of course, the main plot line that they have when Paige and Craig are together is, you know, Craig kind of pressuring Paige on when they're going to get married and when she's going to move to Charleston and have babies.
Yeah. They are the definition of the golden retriever black cat relationship, yeah. Right? Like,
I know.
He is so ready to settle down, and she is like, "Nah, I'm good, thank you."
One thing that's interesting though is Paige says in this scene, she's like, "We've only been together 1.5 years," and you're like,
"Wow."
I feel like this conversation of when are they going to get married has been going on for at least 3 years.
So long. I know. It feels like it's been forever. Well, that's just it. It spanned like so many different seasons, right? So,
and I think that's why like Reality Bites was saying that Bravo really doesn't like crossovers, and I think for a lot of reasons it's because of this. Like we end up seeing these people year round, and then I guess maybe you expect more to change, like because it feels like more time is passing, but it's not.
That makes sense.
Like they've been together 1.5 years. Like, dude, chill. Everyone chill. Like I understand Paige, and she's also like, making friends in your 30s is hard. Like I felt that so deeply.
Yeah. Oh my god. And relocating for like a boyfriend or like a fiance even like is just such a big move, and like not something that you can like just take lightly, right? Like especially when you're moving from somewhere like New York, which is so busy, filled with so many people, all of your friends, all of your family, and like just, you know, up and relocating somewhere completely new.
I feel like that's just the story they're going to continue to talk about when they're together
until it finally happens.
We always love seeing Paige, and I feel like she's a really good addition to the cast, so we'll see what happens. It was a cute scene. I like to watch them like joking together. I think it's really cute. And then we move into there was like a lot of just like small scenes between different people that I feel like we haven't seen in a little bit. So one of them being Leva and Rod, so they go out together.
Who knew that they were friends? Who knew that they even knew each other, right?
Apparently they've been friends for 14 years. My main reaction to the scene was just like, oh yeah, Leva's in this season.
Well, that's how I felt about the scene with Venita and Madison. I was like, oh yeah, you guys are here.
Yeah, I guess because it's been like 2 episodes of The Mountain and none of them were there.
Yeah, and even hearing Venita talk about Fashion Week, I was like, it's only just been Fashion Week? Like, it feels like this was so long ago that we had that dinner at JT's house, and now here we are picking up filming with you like a week later. Like, that's Fashion Week isn't even like a whole week, is it? Like, it's like 3 days.
I think that's what's hard too with like the cast like this, where there's this group of friends who are so close, and then everyone else, they don't quite feel as like, you know, cohesive in the group. And I feel like this is them kind of being like, well, we have these other stories we have to cover, but they don't end up really covering their stories. It's almost like, I forget the word for it, but when they do, is it round robins, when like they just kind of go in and they film like, hey, Craig getting up in the morning and having coffee, or just kind of like a lay of the land. These scenes kind of felt like a round robin, just like, hey, what are you doing?
Hey, we have some cast members we're technically considering to be full-time, so let's just like insert them in little bits and pieces in places where they could potentially work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was weird.
Another thing that was interesting in this scene is just like, oh man, Rod, I feel like he started off pretty strong, and now he's just like saying some things, like, you know, for example, in the last episode, trying to tell Olivia that he wants to be exclusive, like right after her brother had died, and just like not the right time.
No, not the right time at all.
And then when he's talking to Leva, he's basically just like, yeah, like we were doing so well, and now I feel like she's kind of pulling away, and like he seems like confused over that.
Well, I think the difference between like when your first date happened and now, I think there's a pretty clear like major life event that happened in the middle there. Like, how could you not see why that might like completely throw somebody through a loop and like make them completely reprioritize their like everything that's in their life right now.
Yeah.
Not limited to, but including like their relationships, and if they even want to be in a relationship, or if that even matters to them right now. Like,
yeah, just conveniently left that out.
Yeah.
I hope that maybe it was part of the conversation, because Leva is like also very close to Olivia, and like Leva was more just being like, yeah, like it kind of seemed like Leva was pulling a bit of like a Cameron, when Cameron kept trying to push like Chelsea and Shep together, when like Chelsea just wasn't into it, and she just kind of was like, oh, you know, like it was a little bit of a just give her time type thing. Like,
yeah, and like, why wouldn't, it's weird to me too that like Leva wouldn't like think of that in the moment either, and be like, well, this might be the reason why she's not into this right now, is that she's just like going through this major thing in her life. She doesn't need a boyfriend right now.
It's true. There is also the chemistry thing that's been brought up quite a bit, and at first I was like, oh, like maybe like be easy on Olivia and Rod, like maybe they just don't show it in the same way, or like, you know, he's new to the cast and like there's different dynamics, but I feel like you really can't deny at this point that Olivia does tend to have more chemistry with Austen. I feel like even just in their general interactions.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but at the same time, like maybe also because of this whole like Austen stuff that's like happening, like wouldn't that also be a reason why Olivia would like maybe not be trusting her taste in men at this point in time, right? Like,
and I don't think she is. Like, I think she was kind of just like, she even said when she told Rod, she's like, I'm not in like the mental space to be doing this. Like, I'm dating, but like,
weird choices with that one, Rod, unfortunately.
So that was and that was probably like what, like a 2-3 minute scene. Like, it was really quick. That's all we saw of the rest of those two the rest of the episode.
Check that one off for the box for this episode.
And then we move on to one of the bigger kind of like things that come out in the episode is this like picnic between Taylor and JT, where JT actually starts to hold Taylor accountable a little bit, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect that, because he has just been like praising the ground she walks on.
the angel has arrived. The light of my life. I thought that this was an interesting scene. I do think that like what we saw about JT at the beginning of this season was his kind of like ability to kind of like go after a storyline and like poke and prod and kind of like get information out there. So I think that I do appreciate this scene because he is doing that work and he is getting that information for us. So you can kind of see how like he might be built pretty well for this type of show. So he's like proving himself a little bit, even though we do think he's a little cringe. But yeah, I thought that was at least good. Some good maneuvering there.
Yeah. So one of the things that he said actually, and this is where I was like, oh, good job, is he's like, you know, I'm seeing a bit of a theme with you. Like, you know, you're like, I've been burned, and now you're taking this flamethrower and you're just gonna torch everybody.
That does feel like what is happening here.
It's fully what's happening. And it's like, and this is kind of like the dichotomy and like the kind of frustration that you have with Taylor, is it's like no one's saying that you didn't, you know, suffer in this relationship with Shep. Like, you clearly, like, he clearly treated you pretty badly. I think she's gone through a lot. I think she's trying to like process and come to terms with what happened, but like then she's just using that as a crutch for like all of this other bad behavior, and like just throwing that back every chance that she gets. Like, even in the conversation she had with Shep, where she's like, did you enjoy cheating on me? And like,
that's just it. She knew that was a bit of a loaded question that was going to get a reaction out of him, and like she just wanted to have like another opportunity to kind of like jab him and like get another poke in there. And I'm not saying that like, you know, it's acceptable what he like responded to that with, but at the same time, like, you know, if it has been this amount of time since your guys' relationship has ended, and now she's clearly still so hung up on it that she's still like making those comments, and it does feel weird that she's kind of still in that place and like hasn't really made any effort to like move on or move past this.
Well, that's it. And she does say in her conversation with JT, she's like, you know, I should have gone to a therapist like when we broke up. And like, yes, that definitely would have been a good thing to do, to kind of like unpack those feelings. And I feel like you see just the extent of how much this is still impacting her, actually, like after he says, I enjoyed cheating on you. And obviously no one is going to react well to that. Like, that is horrifying. But she like, you know, she's like, he cheated on me multiple times. Like, you could tell she's like, this is still so fresh in her mind, and like she's still so weighed down by it. Like, there's just a lot there.
There is a lot there, and it's very unfortunate that it's like then translating into her like hurting these people in her friend group, right? Like, you know, technically, yeah, like she can go through life and like she doesn't owe anything to anybody. She can do whatever she wants, but she needs to know that like there are consequences to her actions, and that's going to result. And that's what she's kind of like seen since this has started to come out, is that like her relationship with Austen is now hurting because of, you know, what's happened with Shep, with her hooking up with him or kissing him or whatever ended up happening between the two of them. And then obviously with her hookup with Austen, that's also now impacted her relationship with Olivia, and also just kind of her standing in the group as well, right? So
Yeah,
you know, yeah, it's very unfortunate that this is kind of how it's all gone down.
it is. And I feel like a lot of it too, like the discourse that's out there is also like, you know, the kiss was bad, no one's saying that it wasn't, but like what's the worst part, and I think the part that she's being more like harshly kind of judged for, is more like her actions following the kiss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exemplified in this scene where, you know, she does say that she's the one who initiated the kiss with Austen, and she's like, you know, I take full accountability for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, okay,
Cool.
there's some introspection.
Yeah.
But then you go to her confessional and she just kind of like completely goes the other way. And I actually wrote it down because she's like, you know, it would be weird and crazy, yes, but like it's not the first time that this has ever happened. You know, two couples break up, a best friend and a best friend, and then they end up together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human being, and you know, there could have been a real connection there, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to unpack that first.
Yeah,
What do you
I
mean?
think so.
Like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Best friend,
Yeah.
hookup, betray other best friends. It's, you know, you just hear it all the time. It's
Yeah,
so common.
totally common. And unfortunately it feels like in that kind of like synopsis of it as well, she's like a little bit leaving out the like Olivia factor too, right? Like it would be one thing if, you know, Olivia had never been part of the equation. I don't think any of us would really have a problem with it, because actually a lot of the time in last season, we were seeing these scenes between Taylor and Austen, and
Yeah,
we were seeing like this kind of chemistry between the two of them, and the way that he
totally.
cared for her, and like how there could have been like something good there. And it did kind of feel like she was with the wrong person because she was with Shep, but at the same time, like there's still another person at play here. And even if you wanted to hurt Shep, and if you wanted to like, you know, stick it to him or whatever, like there's another person that you're hurting in the process of that.
Well, that's
And
it. And I think that was even called out too, right? Because like I think JT brought up Olivia, or she's like, you know, I wasn't thinking of Olivia. Like, if anything, I was more thinking like I would want to hurt Shep, but I wouldn't want to hurt her. So it's
yeah.
like it does kind of like make you wonder what the motivation was there, and like
Mm-hmm.
also like how could you not think about Olivia? Like it's just
Yeah.
like I don't understand that, like they were so close at this time. And
Yeah.
also adding in that like at this time she's also telling Olivia that she should make it work with Austen. So
Right? Like of all things, which is like so perplexing as well, is that like either she was so convinced that like this secret was going to be like fully guarded, and that there was never going to be anything that happened, like nothing ever going to like leak out, um and like she could kind of go to her grave with this like secret about like what happened to her, between her and Austen. Or it is this like romance where like her and Austen could have ended up together, but it can't also be like, but here am I, like, you know, going to bat for Austen with Olivia, and like telling her what a good opportunity he is and how great he would be as a partner. And it's so strange.
yeah, I know. I don't, some things like the math isn't mathing, like
No.
something is not the way that they're saying it is. And
Yeah.
even like when she's like, you know, there could have been feelings there but there weren't, I'm like, how did we get to that, right? Like
Yeah.
how did you go from like I'm going to kiss
Yeah.
Austen
Yeah.
and take him by surprise, in her own words, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to there's nothing there. Like
Yeah.
what did that look like, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and they're still really good friends, they still hang out all the time, they still clearly have a connection. So like
Yeah.
that's where you're just kind of like, and I think that's
You're
why
losing
everyone's like,
us.
well, that's not all that happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the weird thing too, is that like I think if they had like, you know, he'd had this conversation with Olivia. Olivia goes to LA, and then they hook up. Austen and Taylor hook up, they like decide that they wanted to be in a relationship. They decide, you know what, our first thing to do is we have to tell Olivia, we have to apologize to her, we have to let her know, you know, we just fell in love like accidentally one night and we're going to be in a relationship. I think Olivia could have been more receptive to that than like this, like, not, you know, fake truths, minimal information, little bits of pieces being spread around here and there, lying to her, you know, just like all of this stuff that they've done instead is feeling so much worse than like if they had just kind of like come out and been like, you know what, we're in love and we want to be together and we're gonna be together forever now.
well that's it, and I think that's the confusing part, is just like you don't really understand the motivation to it, and it just kind of feels like it's just like all like, what was all of this for then, right? Exactly. Like it's just like
it was nothing.
And the way that Taylor talks about it is super confusing too, right? Like I think at one point she's like, I just wanted to see what it would feel like, or like I wanted to see what it would be like. Like it's just like, what,
as if there's no way to imagine that just in your brain before like you make any kind of moves or do anything.
And then for them to just be like, oh no, we're actually just friends, like it's just like it's so it was just so strange. And like the fact that like I want to know when the confessionals were filmed, because I feel like anytime Taylor seems like she's having any kind of like introspection or like feeling bad, and like she'll kind of say in the moment like I was wrong, or like she will say these things,
starting to take little bits of pieces of accountability.
But then you'll, you know, swap to her confessional, and like every single confessional she's had, I feel like has only been her like justifying her actions, or being like, I'm, you know, I'm human, they weren't really, were they even dating, we were all single, and like that's not what we're looking for from her. Like I just feel like had both her and Austen just come clean and been like, we feel so bad, this never should have happened, like how can we gain your trust back, instead of just kind of like going through these hoops, like very similar to like what we saw play out with like Scandival, with like Raquel and Tom Sandoval, just kind of like trying to shift blame.
Are you still in love with your boyfriend of 7 years?
You don't love him, right?
You guys aren't really together, right? Like this is all a facade. I know. I really I'm very confused. I do like, I know that they say that the confessionals are usually like filmed like multiple times like throughout the season, so we very well might be seeing confessionals that are actually post the Jamaica trip, and so it makes me wonder if like the Jamaica trip is like gonna continue to just like elaborate on more and more information, which it kind of seems like from the mid-season trailer that might be what happens. But like also at the same time, like you can't trust a trailer because like they're very good at editing these things together, right? So I just don't know. But you're right, the confessional timings are kind of like very strange in comparison to what we're seeing on screen, because it feels like that's a more authentic version of Taylor than the confessional bits are.
And you also wonder like if maybe the confessionals are kind of like, you know, when Tom Sandoval was like very clearly trying to leave breadcrumbs and make his own story of why, you know, this happened, and that him and Ariana weren't happy. I wonder if Taylor was trying to kind of give herself a better edit by playing down the situation in her confessionals.
I mean, I guess that's definitely possible, right? That would be smart. It hasn't gone well, but it's a gamble and it's something that you're able to do and hope for the best. But it's not convincing any of us, unfortunately.
No, and it's just a lack of accountability. But that was you know, it was a short scene, but it was quite compact, and I feel like we got a lot from it.
It was impactful. Yeah, definitely.
And then we move on to another scene, which is between Venita and Madison, where again you're like, oh yeah, you guys are here too.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. You got some storylines. Let's see what you got here.
My main thoughts here, similar to the Leva and Rod one, was again like I was just like, the scene feels very disconnected. Like I thought actually when the scene started that they were gonna get Madison and Venita to talk about what had happened or something. But no, they actually just kind of are like catching up and talking about, you know, what's it called? We were just talking about
Fashion Week.
They're talking about Fashion Week. They were talking about their partners. And then that was literally it. We just moved on. Like I had paused it to take notes, and then by the time I unpaused it, I was like, "Oh nope, that's the end of this scene."
Talk about there. Fair enough. I know. I guess like the one maybe piece of information we really got out of that was I got a couple. Venita and her boyfriend are about to celebrate their 8-month anniversary, which is like, that's not really an anniversary, but okay. I'm not one of those like monthly anniversary people. I'm not Paris Hilton. I'm sorry.
Month anniversry. I'm not gonna lie. I was the first year.
Okay, fair enough.
It was
fair
exciting.
enough. Well, that's good. And I guess that's just it. Maybe I'm just too like boring for lack of a better term. And then I think it's to set up the whole kind of like idea of Madison like wanting to like think about having another child and start to have that conversation happening within the show. But then also, as you say, like this could have been happening, like this scene could have happened while they were at the cottage, and like it's like kind of like is a way to like explain away why they weren't invited to the cottage, because neither of these people were at the cottage. I guess it wasn't like a boys' weekend, so like maybe that's why, but like they don't really seem to also be doing anything as like the girls group, a part of the group, because I guess there's just too many fractures in the girl group to really do that. So I just kind of like feel like that is like a little bit of a disconnected scene from anything else.
Yeah, it just felt very disjointed, and I feel like maybe you pick up on it more this episode because the last 2 episodes were kind of one continuous storyline, and everyone at the cottage was part of it. Whereas normally there are more, split scenes, but it's just like I feel like there was a storyline that they were pulling through, which was about us finding out more about Austen and Taylor, and like also kind of like Shep like not being able to deal with his emotions about all of this, and then they just kind of threw in these other scenes that were just kind of like there.
Exactly, just kind of random moments in time to be able to include. And I think that that's kind of like unfortunately the overall issue with kind of the casting that's either happened, is that like you clearly have like a very core group of friends that are all very close, and like the rest of the people aren't integrated properly in any other kind of meaningful way. Which is also like part of our biggest complaint with like Southern Charm and Southern Hospitality, is that like we haven't had this group integrated in any kind of meaningful way, so we have no reason to care like one way or another. Anyways. That's that.
No, it's true, and I think like it's a good point, and we'll see kind of like it didn't feel as apparent at the beginning, and that's kind of why like I don't feel like I picked up on it as much at the beginning, but I think it's because they were like, okay, they had like girl groups when it was all like, okay, we're gonna talk about Taylor and like how she's feeling, we're gonna get all the girls around. But
even like the dinner, which I know that we're gonna get to, so I don't want to like jump ahead, but the dinner, the boys' dinner, the guys' night dinner at Patricia's house, like JT wasn't invited to that. Rod wasn't invited. Rod wasn't invited to that. Rodrigo was invited to that, but that's because we know that Rodrigo is actually their like a longtime friend of this group, and so it was a natural thing for him to be invited. But it just, I don't know, it feels weird.
I want more Rodrigo time, because like you said, like he's clearly friends with these group, and I love that we've said before, like he feels like he's the voice of the audience. Like he is always just giving those like side eye or just like what is happening. But we don't know anything about him. Like I feel like he's.
I don't even like feel like we've gotten a confessional from him.
Like, no, you're right.
But like I don't think
have
so.
We?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure he's a
that
full-time cast member.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's weird.
More Rodrigo, please.
Yeah, more Rodrigo. Just get the Rodrigo show going.
So then the next scene that we go into is Craig and Austen. Which is always good when we put those two together.
It is. They're messy.
And I have to give it to Craig. Craig gets the assignment this episode, even this season. Like, I do really like the boys' dynamic, because I feel like Craig is able to call out Austen on his shit, but like in a way that doesn't make Austen feel too like he has to go on the defensive.
Right. Yes.
Like maybe because they've both been there, and like, Craig's been dragged through the mud as well. And like Craig's, had some questionable behavior in the past too.
Totally.
But I do like the way that Craig just, the dynamic that they both have.
I was actually noticing that too at the guys' night dinner, and I'm sorry I keep on like jumping forward to that, but like it's just so interesting to see how Craig and Austen kind of like, Austen coming onto the show allowed Craig to kind of have like a partner in crime and have like somebody who like leveled the playing field with him. Well, because Shep and Whitney were always like so going after Craig and like beating up on Craig, and like whatever Craig was doing was wrong. Like
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Because I think when Austen came on the scene, it's when Shep had this like weird like hatred of Craig, right?
Yes, oh, very much so. Yeah. They spent like seasons going after him about like his law degree and like what was happening with that, and giving him a hard time, and he didn't have a job, and he didn't have mailbox money, so like what was he gonna do?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
always just so rich for like these two guys who like themselves don't have a job but just happen
No.
to be from extremely wealthy families
Yeah.
to be ragging on Craig for
Yeah.
being lazy. And you're just like,
Yeah. And like living off of like the proceeds of Bravo instead of living off of the proceeds of their like just
Like,
money that magically shows up in their accounts.
what a loser. You actually have to work, but you didn't even
But you
do like
don't,
finish.
so we are unimpressed by you.
Yeah,
Because
you didn't finish
need to
law
work.
school and you're a liar and we
Yeah.
hate you.
Yeah.
But
You
also
never did
you're our
the bar
best friend,
exam.
but we kind of hate you, but
Yeah.
we love you.
And we want you to come out with us every night, but we don't understand why you can't hold down a normal 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. And then
Poor
this
Craig.
season, Shep is really seeming to hate Austen.
Yes.
And Craig's like, yes, it's not me.
Not me anymore.
And then
Free
Craig's
pass
just like
this year.
stoking the flames. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like
He
Craig
really
is
is.
literally, oh my God. I just thought about the Mean Girls scene
Okay.
with the throughway call.
Okay. Oh yeah. That's exactly what Craig is doing.
He's being like, oh my God, isn't Austen like so annoying?
Aren't you like so mad at him? Oh my God.
Aren't you so mad at Austen right now?
Yeah. Don't you think that was a really bitchy thing for him to do?
Oh,
Mean Girls.
yeah.
So good.
It always comes back to Mean Girls.
It does always come back to Mean Girls.
But yeah, this scene is also sorry. So okay, this scene starts off with Austen just being like, man, like Olivia's texted me twice, giving like she's obsessed with me.
She's crazy for me.
Like,
she
what are
wants
you
to get back
doing?
together with me.
Why?
Austin, I don't know. He likes to chase. He likes to chase and be chased, but he doesn't want to like sit still and like be in a relationship. That's why.
So the biggest thing that comes out of this scene is where we start to see Austen kind of like turning on Taylor a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So they're talking about the hookup that happened in like the mountain, the hookup that happened in the mountain.
The mountain hookup. The mountain place hookup.
Yeah,
it's a Tolkien story.
Where Taylor and Shep ended up in bed together after this horrible fight. And then yeah, Austen's like, honestly, she's pathetic for ending up in bed with him, and he says that he's not going to be there to help her pick up the pieces anymore. And actually he told her to respect herself more, and you can lead a horse to water but you can't make them drink, which I thought was very rich coming from Austen, because people would probably say the same thing about him.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I am a little surprised by Austen's like reception of this like Taylor and Shep hookup. Like, I really didn't think that Austen was gonna have that much thoughts about it, because like Austen's not the ex, right? Like, he didn't have a meaningful relationship, and I guess he has probably had to hear like, you know, Taylor cry or like whatever and complain about Shep, and like, you know, they've probably confided in each other about like their past relationships, and so I can kind of get where he's coming from, but I was still surprised that he even really cared, right?
Yeah. Do you think it reads as jealousy?
It does feel a little bit like jealousy, right? And like the conversation that's often happening between Shep and Austen is the fact that they go after the same girls, and like even, and I won't jump ahead, but this comes back up later as well, in the fact that they have similar tastes in women, obviously, and there's, you know, it's a little too close for comfort, maybe.
Yeah.
So Taylor was my girl. She was your girl first, but then she was my girl. And so now the fact that she hooked up with you is unacceptable.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like, I feel like so much of this does kind of come from like the rivalry between the two boys, and kind of feeling like a sense of ownership over the girls, and like getting, you know, just as I think Taylor gets a lot of her self-worth from the attention that she gets from men, like I feel like the boys are kind of the same way with the women.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point, actually. They very much feel validated by the fact that like these women are interested in them, or they have any kind of like power or control over these women, which they clearly do still have a little bit of that. And like even Austen being like, wow, I got 2 text messages from Olivia, like
Yeah.
Clearly there's something there, right?
Man, we could like I feel like we could do a whole episode just on like the dynamic between the boys, because like
Oh my God, yeah.
Shep back from Austin's first season was always like so aggravated that like Chelsea basically chose
him.
Austin, and
Yeah.
like that's just never gonna be the way that Shep recounts the story. Like
No.
Austin stole her
away.
like
yeah. I know.
She had no free will of her own.
No, she didn't get to choose who she liked better.
Like, God forbid someone just doesn't like you.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't like your antics.
Yeah, so we're clearly gonna, and I feel like this, like, we're seeing this play out. Like, we're seeing just like Shep's kind of like anger towards Austin that has been there for years, just kind of like hit the fan this season.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like it's kind of finally hitting the fan a little bit, and it's maybe because it's finally hitting like very close to home for Shep as well, with it being kind of like around Taylor, because at least with the Chelsea thing, like Shep and Chelsea were not in a relationship, they were not anything.
No.
And whereas like Shep and Taylor were at least in like, you know, Shep's most committed relationship that we've ever seen. So
yeah. It's true. Yeah. And then we finally get to the boys' night at Miss Pat's, where Miss Pat was not able to attend. She hurt her back. So we see Whitney kind of trying to plan this dinner and just kind of like not knowing what to do at all.
Running around looking for asparagus dishes. I loved it. I thought that was very fun.
I know. I do love the kind of like comic relief that
Whitney is able to, and that's just it. And I think that Whitney like was very smart in like the earlier seasons when he finally decided that he needed to step back from the drama and like uninsert himself. And is there an opposite of insert yourself?
Disengage.
Disengage. Oh yeah, I'm disengaging. I love Meredith Marks. Yeah. So that he could just kind of like be there and like be a little bit like comedic relief versus like actually getting into it. Yeah,
it's true. And like, and it also serves as a really good plot point, because then they could be like, hey Whitney, like, did you hear everything that happened the weekend?
That's just it. He's the perfect plot point, because you can loop him into like whatever's going on, and just get his take on it. And clearly he's pretty good at like getting a little bit, like he knows what the probing questions are that like will get this information out of people.
Yeah, he's been doing this for a while.
He's smarter than he looks.
So we start off Shep just like right away stoking the flames. Like I feel like they're talking, and then like literally out of nowhere he's like, hey Austin, you know Taylor's dog and her car at my house? Yeah, we had lunch.
Okay. Okay.
like that was, it was so abrupt. And
it was so abrupt, and I felt like the energy that Shep was bringing to the dinner party kind of like in general was very interesting. Like either, I don't know if it's like because he's just like not over like what's been happening the last few weeks, or like something's bubbling up in him, but even the way that he was kind of talking about Paige and Craig, and like the fact that like they never come out and stuff, and that like we know they're homebodies, and when Paige comes to Charleston, like they never see her, and like I just thought that was interesting that he like even kind of really cared, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like putting that pressure on Craig.
Yeah, it's true. He definitely came with more of like an argumentative like kind of
like nature to him that day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was odd. I know when they're talking about that with Paige, and it's just like, I think Craig actually told him, he's like, well, can you not get to know Paige like outside of like the nightlife
side? See, yeah, exactly.
And he's like, well, I'm like 43 and I'm still like, should I go to the bar tonight? And we're all like, yes, we know. That might be part of the problem.
Yeah. Plus, like, your reason for going to the bar is very different than like why Paige and Craig would be going to the bar, right? Like, they're not going to like cruise ladies in Charleston. Like, cruise ladies.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's how it starts out. Craig straight up was just like, did you bone? Long pause.
Oh yeah.
Because we need to get that into the, before the commercial break.
Yeah, of course.
And then he says, no, they just made out.
Right.
I feel like Austin and Craig are going to fight. I wrote this down.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Oh, sorry, not Craig. Oh my gosh, I can't get anyone's names right.
I mean, Austin and Craig could fight.
Not this season. I feel like Shep and Austin are going to fight.
Right. Like,
there's so much palpable tension between the two.
Yeah.
And like Shep just like hates him right now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very upset, which is weird because I'm just surprised that Shep is more upset with him right now than he was a few weeks ago.
Well,
right?
that's it. And then like the conversation gets really interesting.
Well, I was even surprised by this like dinner argument, mainly just because it felt like it went by so fast. Like I like kind of like I felt like I like blinked and I missed it, and I had to actually had to like rewind and be like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, why is Shep like storming off?
I know.
And then he was just like, well, I'm leaving now, bye.
Well,
And then that was
yeah.
it.
Okay, that's what happened. Like, so
Yeah.
they finally sit down to dinner and they're gonna
Mhm.
eat. Quick shout out to the beef Wellington because that
Oh,
sounded
it's
amazing. It sounded
amazing.
amazing. It looked amazing. I want beef Wellington.
I know, me too. It's so hard to make. It's like, it's hard to not have a soggy bottom on that beef Wellington. So I don't know how they did it.
I've definitely not ever tried it, but it's
really
delicious.
Hard. It's really good.
So yeah, they're like, oh yeah, Whitney, like you didn't hear about what happened. Then like right off the bat, Shep is just like, oh well, I'm sure it was super one-sided. Like Austen, like you don't have a moral leg to stand on. Like you crossed me and I chose to be a gentleman. And then Craig's like, no, you didn't. You just chose to like not deal with it.
Yeah. Just have
So
to
that's
bundle it deep inside of you and like still host your pheasant party and like whatever.
Well, that's just it. And like I guess like to your point of like why is he seem more angry now? It's like it's almost like now he's more mad because he's like, in his head he was a gentleman.
Right.
And he, should have been way meaner to him, but he wasn't. Like he even said,
Yeah.
like I'm making excuses for you in my head. You're just like, what's happening right now?
Yeah. Right? And like it's like almost like, but why are you blaming him for how you reacted?
Yeah.
And like if you chose to react in that way at that time and you decided to like not do anything about it or not confront him about it, you can't then be mad that like what was Austin supposed to like force you to get mad about it, and that would have been better. Sorry. I don't know, it was just weird.
Yeah, I mean Shep is like he's clearly been pushing it down, and now it's like kind of coming like out. Basically reached its boiling point, and we're seeing that, but like yeah, he's just like spiraling, and you're like, this is kind of the reaction I would have anticipated before,
months ago,
like
weeks ago.
Yeah. You also just have to think if JT was there, he would definitely be like stoking the flames.
Yeah.
And he would have made this so much worse. He would have just like took any opportunity to just like destroy Austen.
Yeah, exactly. Bash on Austen. That's his favorite activity.
I'm trying to find what else happened because yeah, to your point, like so it was very quick. I feel like a lot of things were said. I had to keep pausing it actually so that I could get it all down.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So Craig was really the instigator of this dinner, and I kind of loved it. I was really here for it. I feel like he was like just calling everyone out pretty much.
Yeah, proving once again that like sober Craig is like the better Craig. Well, he's not really like fully sober, but he's like, like reined in and just doing the messy work instead of being messy himself.
Craig, like outside the center of the drama, I'm like really enjoying. But yeah, he's like, he's like, just say that he hurt you and you don't know how to be friends with him, because like I wouldn't know how to be friends with him. And Shep is just like, no, but like getting super angry about it.
Yeah.
And Craig even tells you, he's like, he's like, your decision to push this down is just going to make you angrier, and like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like Shep thinks I don't know, Shep just like always has such an overinflated view of himself.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like comparing himself as like a gentleman, like it all feels a little bit like kind of a little bit old-timey or old worldy or whatever, which I think also goes back to like the point that we made like I think last week or a couple weeks ago about like the fact that he's starting to kind of be like the T-Rav of the group. I thought
the same thing too.
It's just weird that
he's really turning into T-Rav.
Yeah, like he's gonna be sitting them down any day now to let them know how they need to conduct themselves at his dinner party.
Yeah, especially just like his like on off switch. Like he will just like blow up, and like you won't know what got him there, and you can't anticipate it. Like, and then he basically just like storms off. He doesn't even say bye to Whitney. Like he just
I thought that was really weird too. Poor Rodrigo too, because when he had to say goodbye, he just was like, okay, bye guys.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess this dinner party's over. It was super fun. Thanks for having me.
It was so strange. It really went like 0 to 100. Like I feel like so quick, so and quickly. It's just messy.
It is messy. But this dinner party did get one good thing out of it.
Which is a reenactment.
Which we haven't seen. It was great. I really enjoyed the reenactment. Yeah.
So we move outside. Most people leave, but Craig and Austen and Whitney stay, and Craig is just kind of using this as an opportunity to be like, what happened? Like, are you going to tell us?
Let's do it. This is
actually,
the time.
it wasn't Craig, it was Whitney. Whitney's like, how did you come? Like, how did this come about? Like, how did you end up kissing? And Austen's like, yeah, like Taylor made a move on me, and like we were jamming. They're like, what do you mean? Like listening, like just dancing,
music, dancing.
Yeah,
as you do.
And then we got a really great reenactment with Whitney, playing the role of Taylor, dancing like this. She's dancing, and then and then Austen is in back of her. And then they turn and they're facing each other, and then I guess Taylor just like goes in
the move. Just like goes for it. Interesting.
Yeah, so it happened, and then right after it happened, I guess they talked about it, and they said, no, we're gonna be better as friends. Probably would have been better for them to have that conversation before the kiss.
Well, yeah, maybe.
And then this is where we start to see some of the cracks in the stories.
Yes,
is where they're talking about it, and then like I guess Austen was like, yeah, like so we're in my kitchen, and Craig's like, no, you said that you were in New York. Like whenever you guys talked about this, you said you were in New York. And he's like, what? No, I didn't say we were in New York. It was always my house.
Right. Well, which also makes me feel like I need to like go back and actually like rewatch all the episodes to like see what they said in each episode about the version of the events, because they do a flashback to Taylor talking about it also as if it was after New York.
Yes, but I guess they just say they do say after New York, I think. So
do they mean after New York as in after the reunion in New York, and like their New York is like their code word for the reunion and they just can't say that out loud? Or is it like after they came back from New York and they were back in Charleston?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah, but something's fishy. I'm not buying it. Like
well, and that's just it. Like Austen says that like they then had a phone call the next day, and that he says to Taylor like, thank God we didn't sleep together, or something like that. And it's just interesting that he kind of like inserted that to like make it sound like nothing happened, and that kind of confirms that like there was nothing beyond that kind of like kiss, which is the current version of events that they're both going off of. But then like I think even Craig kind of calling into question whether it was in New York or if something happened in New York, but then something else happened afterwards, and obviously the sleepovers that we know like have happened subsequently after this little kiss, this little
well, that's what Craig says too. He's okay, like regardless of when this happened, like you had these sleepovers after, and you're two people who had kissed and like you know got far enough that you were like, should we date? And then you're just kind of like you're just kind of playing with fire.
Family. Yeah, definitely. And like knowing that you like, it's one thing to kind of do it in the heat of the moment and like have a kiss and like, you know, you guys were dancing, you probably like drinking a little bit, like having a good time, like whatever. But to then potentially have like these like additional sleepovers and these additional like, you know, conversations and stuff, like those are not the you know, the nothing parts of this, right? Like these are the parts that are hurting people. And like knowing that like you went to like your brother and that Austen went to his sister, and you know, now, and you had full-on conversations about whether or not this was a viable thing and that if you should do this. So
and the part that I also just like, I feel like what really changed it and like where they can't go back from, and I think Olivia's even said this, is that, you know, initial conversation between Olivia and Taylor when like Olivia straight up asked her and Taylor is like, no, nothing happened, like I swear on the Bible, I'm like, you know, I swear on like my family members, and it's just like, why did you do that? Because like that really ruined her credibility moving forward. And Olivia even told her, she's like, I don't trust you, like I think something happened. And it's like, you know, you can place blame all you want to, like she was going with the plan that Austen went with, and
they laid it out together.
She thought he was going to do the same, but like you didn't have to go that hard, like you didn't have to bring especially for like a super religious person to lie on the Bible. It's just so weird.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know, it's very weird. Well, and that's just it, like she's then backed off and like not gone as hard and like not, you know, made such big statements, and maybe that's because she felt kind of guilty about the fact that like when she was lying, she was making these really big statements of like, I promise it didn't happen, hand on my heart, whatever. But now the fact that like they're telling versions of the events that are true, and we're not getting that kind of same level of like dismissal, like I'm just really not sure how to read this.
Yeah, I think it's a lose-lose situation. I
Yeah.
am curious like how it's going to move forward now that Austen is kind of less in Taylor's corner.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's kind of less in Taylor's corner. Like even
Yeah.
JT, like her going back to Shep, just like it was really it's hard for people to kind of make excuses for her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, unfortunately. I just have to hope that like because she's in a new relationship, she's in a better place and that she's moving past all this because
Oh
I think
yeah.
this was a series of bad mistakes, a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, exactly.
And that
She's
that Shep one in particular really clearly is like the nail in the coffin.
yeah, and Shep is just like the fact that Shep keeps bringing up that she wanted more and he's
Right,
the one who
yeah.
rejected it makes me really think that it's the opposite.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I have to wonder how drunk Shep was, kind of, in that time frame, right? Like maybe his version of events are aided by certain substances.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
No, that's true.
alcoholic beverages.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for the Jamaica trip. I
I'm
feel
so
like that's
excited
going
for
to
the
be
Jamaica
really
trip.
fun.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see the whole group together. Like I think that like
Mhm.
we need these scenes where like everybody's together and like this whole thing is happening because otherwise we're just floundering.
So that's the episode. Let us know what you thought. Do you like the recap style? It's kind of something new that we're trying out.
Do you believe that nothing happened between Shep and Taylor? Nothing more happened between Shep and Taylor?
I don't think anyone believes that right now, but yeah, let me know.
All in good time.